I'll give a hot take for a second, and I might get some hate for this one, but it's okay. This is my conviction, and I'm sticking to it. But I don't think that every church should have a live stream. Honestly, I really don't. And I say that in the sense that
so many people just turned it off.
Yep.
They
yep.
just go,
Yep. Well, and here's what let me back up and say this. I think you should have the ability to capture what's happening in the room on Sunday and record it. But you don't necessarily need to go live.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Pod at ROLC. And I just want to say thank you in advance already for so many of you that have been watching. YouTube's been popping off.
Yeah.
Apple people, we see you. Spotify people, that's kind of weird that you're listening through Spotify.
Are you Spotify or Apple?
I'm Apple.
Okay, I'm Spotify.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've talked about this a little bit with people, and I've never listened to a podcast on Spotify.
Really?
When we got this launched,
that's funny.
And somebody's like, "We need to get on Spotify," and I was like, "For what?" They're like, "To listen to a podcast."
Yeah.
It's like I have never listened to a podcast ever on Spotify.
That's so funny.
I didn't even know that you could put videos because we were posting the video there, and I was like, okay, we got to clean this up. Let's just go video, YouTube stuff. But hey, anyways,
we're rocking and rolling.
We're doing it. But so thank you, however it is that you choose to watch, listen, whatever. We appreciate it so much. Thank you for sharing. And man, we're going to get into it today. It's going to be a good one.
Let's go.
It's something different than we've been doing. The last several videos we've done, they've had great views, great responses from them. But today's a little bit different. And so today I've got our production director with us, Mr. Dustin Oakes.
What's up?
And a lot of you guys know him, see him around. And he's going to share with us today some thoughts about some live streaming, some church online, your wheelhouse of stuff. I was telling you before we got going here, I was like, okay, I picked a topic that I know nothing about.
Yeah.
So you just go, you tell us what to do, and we'll go from there. But thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for letting us crash your office.
Yeah.
New space.
Yeah, it looks great on this side, and then there's nothing but gear
you
over there.
See that over there.
Yeah.
The select few people that are on your team, they know. They get to see all the chaos of the stuff.
They get an inside scoop.
But it works. So so thank you for being on.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited about getting into this. This is something different, like I said, than what we talked about.
Yeah.
But this whole idea of really just your wheelhouse. So around here, you handle basically everything production-wise. So
pretty much.
You're handling lights, camera, sound, action. Honestly, everything that goes into all they're missing is just the 90s everything that is basically going on around here.
Right.
Some of the things that people raise eyebrows about, you're the reason for all these things.
I guess.
And a lot of people don't even know who you are. That's
true.
That's the great part about it.
It's true. It is a blessing and a curse. That's true.
Because a lot of times I'd be like, you guys know Dustin? No, don't know.
Yep.
It's you've been here 3 or 4 years. He's every service.
Nope,
never seen him before.
That's so
it's
funny.
good he's hiding out. But you lead a great team. Well, I just want to congratulate you on that.
They are a great team. I'm very thankful.
Honestly, your team is incredible. They're here from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m.
They are the
Sundays.
MVPs.
They are incredible. We've recently started, and I know you have the right words for this, but as far as our live stream the last few weeks, I'm bragging on it. It looks so good.
Thank you.
And you've got team members, they're up on stage.
Yeah, man.
They're running cameras. They blend in so good. They like doing it.
Dude, they're crushing it. It's been a lot of fun. Well, it's been a lot of fun the entire time I've been here doing this. But here lately, dude, we've just gotten into a groove, and it's
a good season.
It's been cool.
It's good right now. Yeah. And people that are, because we talk a lot about people watching online, and we're getting a lot of good report right now from people that they can't be here. They're sick, they're traveling, whatever.
Right.
And they're just church is totally different.
Yeah.
I am engaged.
It's awesome.
Before, people would slide through worship and get to the preaching. But now it's everything is so good. People are watching the entire thing. So
I love it.
So good job to you on that.
Thanks,
good job to your team.
Yes.
And
if you're on the team,
you know who you are.
You know who you are.
You guys are incredible. So thank you for all that you do. So today what I want to do is that I want us to kind of get into this thought of production, live streaming. Should churches do this? Should they not? What are the issues? What are the pros, the cons? Because it seems like people are kind of all in or all out on it. It's yes, I love it. This is great. Or it's the camera doesn't belong in church. Do we even keep earplugs anymore?
I think they're like in a closet somewhere.
Okay.
I have not seen the
When
earplugs
we
in a while.
first started, and this was, I think, how long have you and Katie been at
We
ROLC?
started coming in November of 2020, so
Okay.
we've been here for a minute.
Yeah, you guys been here for a
little bit.
Yeah, 4.5 years
It
now.
does not feel like 4.5 years.
Isn't that
but
crazy?
Yeah,
It's honestly
It is
wild. But I remember, several years before that when we like first started live streaming, and we had like the little Walmart camcorder, and it was like one guy, and it was like, we got a legitimate digital soundboard, and instantly people are like, I need earplugs, and it's like, if it's and you got sensitive ears, I get it,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's just like, okay, we got to get through this hurdle here of getting through this.
Right.
So with everything that we're going to talk about today, I hope my goal for this is that by the time people get done listening, is that they see why this is important.
Right.
The reason that we have people with cameras running around the sanctuary,
Sure.
that it's not just for a show or so we can put it on the TV,
Yeah.
but like this is truly blessing people's lives. People are coming to Christ through it. We just heard, side note before we get into this morning, we just heard testimony of somebody that sent in to the Facebook page of how they haven't been able to be here, but they had actually been watching. You've been preaching. I forgot about this too.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on.
This is a good but kind of weird season for me.
You're doing lots of things.
Some things are
And then at the end
changing.
of this, we're going to talk about your newest season. But this person writing in about like how what you've been preaching on is exactly what they needed to hear.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's just
awesome,
like, thank God that
Absolutely.
we were able to have this to put out there so somebody
Right.
can listen to it.
Right.
So it's cool. So what I want to do is that before we really get into the nuts and bolts of this, I want people, because a lot of people don't know you.
Yeah.
A lot of people have no idea your experience. Some
Sure.
people might think that you're just the guy that volunteered to do it, and hey, good luck.
Yep.
But I want you to share with those listening, those watching, just some of your credibility, because you're not just brand new to this.
No.
This isn't just a learn as you go
Yeah.
thing right now.
Yeah.
You've done this for a little bit, so tell us about like how you got into production media within churches, outside of churches. You've told me about being hundreds of feet up on ladders doing things at shows and that season. So tell us about some of the stuff you've been doing.
Well, man, I've been doing this for goodness, probably 15 years ish, somewhere in there. And like I did start as just like the volunteer that just grabbed a camera
So it's like
and said,
half your
"Here,
life."
let me learn." Yeah, pretty much. Yep. I'm 30, fixing to be 32. No, I'm 31. Sorry. But yeah. And so like half my life I've been doing this, and it kind of all started, really it started in church. So like, let me back up a little bit more. I grew up in church. Like I grew up in a ministry home. And so like, it's just part of my DNA, dude. Like I just grew up in it, and it's been part of my life, and I've never been able to get away from it, so
here.
I guess I'm called to ministry or something, but
In several ways right now.
yeah, no kidding. But it's just one of those things where like one day it was just like, man, I really need to find my place here at church, and I know I need to serve. There was a time where I served in like kids ministry, just kind of like when I was in high school, like I would serve in kids, or junior high, I'd serve in kids and stuff like that, like doing puppets, things like
you're
that.
A puppet
Oh
guy.
yeah, oh
okay.
yeah.
I've never done puppets.
It's funny that was I have good memories doing puppets back in kids church, but I guess that was like the gateway drug into production.
From puppets to, I guess if you do puppets, then you're some kind of different person.
Something like that. Backstage, doing the behind the scenes thing.
Right.
But, But, and then just like I'm a musician too. I play drums. And so like just kind of eventually started playing drums in youth. And then that was even more of like a gateway into some of the production world. And then I kind of started just picking up a camera, clicking through slides on ProPresenter, and things like that. And then I was just there. I just kind of found myself just totally like hooked. I was like, man, this is it. This is my wheelhouse. This is fun, And so started as a volunteer, started as just doing whatever worship pastor needed at my church at the time. And I really got into like, when we'd get ready for Easter or for Christmas or something or like a special sermon series or something like that, where we'd have special production elements, or if we wanted to do like a new stage design, like we'd change our stage design twice a year, that kind of thing. And so I just had a great relationship with my worship pastor, Neil Hubbard. Shout out to you, bro. Miss you. Anyway, Neil was my worship pastor at the time, but, and we hung out a lot. We had a good relationship, and he taught me a lot. And it was just kind of one of those deals where it was like, here, man, like go figure out how to make this light work, and so I just did it, and it's spent a lot of late nights at church, just like rebuilding stage designs and stuff, and really learned, really got like a good grasp of production knowledge just doing it.
Yeah.
Just getting my feet wet.
And that's anything. Just do
exactly.
it.
Just get in the trenches and go,
Yeah.
And so after that, I did that for a long time, kind of just like, in a sense, graduated as a volunteer into kind of like a volunteer lead on the, on like production team, like doing mainly, specifically more in like the live video world. So like live stream and things like that. But, and then there came a season. So then I got married. Katie and I moved away from Northwest Arkansas. We were living in Northwest Arkansas at the time. And that's kind of where I grew up. But and then we moved away and came to Harrison for a year, and just was trying to kind of finish up school. Katie was working, and so was trying to find a job that I could work while I'm finishing up school and stuff. And so then I started working in TV, and at a TV studio in Branson, and just learned a ton there, and it was all just getting in the trenches, just doing it. Well, then after that, that's when things really shifted, and I started actually like kind of hitting my stride, I felt like, in my career. And if you call ministry a career, but and so then I was on staff at a fairly large church for 3.5 years, and man, just like learned more about production and things like that, but more than anything learned about production or like leading a team, and developing volunteers and teaching them how to operate a camera, teaching them how to mix audio, things like that. But it's kind of like, it's just proven to me that these principles of building a team of volunteers and teaching them and developing them how to do things with cameras and stuff like that, like, it's universal. It doesn't matter where you are, right? So
that's a good thought on that. And I think that too, talking about people from around here of wanting to get involved, it's about blue collar. It's like, well, a lot of these jobs, at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, this is what I accomplished today. I talked to a lot of people on your team that they can't wait to go home after church to watch service, because they want to be like, I want to see what I was doing. I was holding, how does the mix sound? These things. And it's just good to see people just taking pride in this. So lots of experience. I know that you were leading a team through the peak of COVID season. So you really got, when everybody, whether you liked it or not, your church was online. It was, you were going to be on Facebook Live, and that's what everybody was doing. If you didn't know what else to do,
that's so true.
And you went through all that,
and that, that season, like, I'll speak to that season for just a minute, because I think it was a valuable one for me. Like, I learned, I had a huge learning curve. All of us did in ministry, but I think especially in the production world, like, we hit a massive learning curve in that time. And I just remember, like, every day we were creating content of some kind. We were doing something, because try to continue to engage our people.
It was the only way.
Yeah. And so, like, we didn't want to lose them. Obviously, they didn't want to lose us either, right? It wasn't like a please don't go. It was more of like, hey, we got to figure out a way to be able to continue to engage, to continue to meet somehow, you know what I'm saying, and keep that community aspect intact, And so, man, although it was a hard season and like it just felt so long and like drug out. It was a really good one. It definitely helped me learn a lot of what I know.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I mean, that was like the mecca of everything, was having to do that stuff. And I wanted people just to hear a little bit just about your story, because I think a lot of people, and this just kind of speaking to people that do attend ROLC. I know we got a lot of people that are watching, listening, that don't go to church here. But those that do, they don't know you all that well, maybe. And so just like knowing that, you've been in it, you've seen a lot of things. You've worked on big teams, small teams, no teams, and just building them up. Kind of like what has happened right now. And so it's just, I think it's good for people just to have some backstory on what's going on.
Absolutely.
And so since we're kind of talking about, your legacy, your half-life, your 15 years of in this, you've seen a lot of things. We just mentioned about, like, the COVID season. But what do you think, like, in the last 10 years or so, of do you feel like this has changed? I'm not on the end of production.
Yeah.
I all I know to do is get a microphone and go speak.
Sure.
But tell us, like, over the last 10 years, maybe some changes that you've seen of just in this.
Yeah, I feel like production in general, but especially production in the church world has changed so much. Like 10 years ago, church production was very in multiple senses loud. Like it was like audibly loud, but it was also very like visually loud. Like try to stimulate as many senses as possible, like try to really.
This was when lasers were big.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Coming out of high school.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was so like, listen, I love production and I love like, highly involved, very dynamic, production elements and stuff like that. Big light shows. I love going to shows, and concerts and seeing all the level of production at those and stuff like that. But honestly, it got to a point, especially in the church world, where it got to be like overwhelming. Like it was just it was in a sense, it wasn't just. Let me be careful how I say this. It was easy to be distracted and enamored by the production elements. And I think you had a group of people who liked it a lot, and that was like they didn't get the depth of what God wanted to do in the moment,
right,
because they were so focused on it. And then there was a group that hated it, and they didn't get what God needed to do in the moment in their life because they were so distracted by it.
And nobody's winning.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what we've seen over the last 10 years is, I think, a more, and this is kind of a principle, I think, of I kind of don't love using this word, but like of evolution in the way, like our processes in the church, and, but like you've seen this somewhat of an evolution, like more of like a tasteful, like curating of how we do our production, and how we use our production systems in the church, where it went from just full bore, as much as possible, all gas, no brakes with production elements, now to a point where, okay, we have these super powerful systems, but we're using them a lot more tastefully and, in a sense, tactfully, where it's not, and I don't mean tactfully in a sense that we're trying to manipulate anyone. It's more of, we're not going to just go all in all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to save it for the highly impactful moments. And so it's just been like a really nice progression of, hey, let's add in elements that help enhance the moment and the feel in the room, but not take away. And I really like where we are right now in the production world. There's still plenty of innovation to happen. That's going to happen. But like, we're never going to arrive, right? Sure. But I do think that we are in a pretty good groove right now in the church production world.
I think it's great right now. And so your thoughts is like, so 10 years ago, we were like all in, let's throw everything at people. Yeah. And then now let's bring it back and make it like more natural. Right. Kind of that feel to it. Right. I was not really like, I was sort of in church, not really in church that time frame, but you would see it all the time of, it's either people like flying through sanctuaries and it's just like, what is and it's like fair reason for people to be a little raised eyebrow about like, what is going on at church, but it's like, you're trying to get people in, you're trying to get them captivated, right? We want you to be here, and so let's add some special elements to it. Speaking of, not to get off topic too much on this, but Easter here, bro, we got dude, I'm stoked. We got some stuff coming up. Easter is gonna pop up. Yeah, if you don't have plans, or even if you do have plans, just get here. Like, just change them. Just it's one Sunday, but we also got a Good Friday service. Got a win, so just be here for it. We got some really cool stuff. Dude, it's gonna be fun. I'm so pumped. I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully people get here on that. And so I'm glad that we got to talk about that as far as just this change and to see where places and things are headed. Yeah. And we've had this conversation, and I actually mentioned it to somebody however long ago, but we had a conversation a couple weeks back about, we are a Spirit-filled church. Right. And so we were sitting around talking about, what do we do when there's the message in tongues interpretation? And it's, do we, as you alluded to, you're like, okay, do we go wide shot? And it's just like, let's just kind of cut intermission, or are we going to like, get in with us?
Sure.
Are we going to let people see? And I think that that's such a good thing of just a realness of,
Right.
we want people to see what God's doing.
Sure.
In every aspect of it.
Definitely.
In a very natural way, not something that's been conjured up or, your word tactfully of something that we're trying to manipulate to get people to feel a certain way, but like just the truth of what God is doing. And I think that's like, as you said, I love that right now. It's just very natural feeling that you can turn this on your TV and watch it. And it's just very like, I'm just sitting there. And there's nothing crazy, but I'm so engaged with the quality and what's happening. Where
I feel like we are right now is in a place where we've learned how to let our production systems follow God's presence, right? So, I'm pretty repetitive a little bit about this with my team and myself especially, is that like one thing that we always say is that we just want to build these production systems where we can take the tools with us when the presence of God wants to go in a new direction. So like we'll have a plan on Planning Center, what we're going to do for Sunday, but we fully expect and kind of anticipate and hope that God wants to do something else, right? That God wants us to go deeper, right? And so we build these production systems out so that we can take those tools with us and we don't lose what's happening. Like we don't lose the atmosphere of the room whenever something deeply spiritual is happening in the room, right? So like I've been in environments where, and I'm in no way throwing anybody under the bus here. Sometimes it just happens, but where service is going, like presence of God is like definitely there, and like it's a holy moment. But then the holy moment hits and the Holy Spirit takes us in a new direction where, well, we didn't plan for us to be able to go off-road. And so now we have to change our production system on the fly and kind of abandon what we have in place so that this holy moment can happen. And for me personally, just because obviously I'm a production-minded guy, but I think not just for me, I think some other people struggle with this, that is more distracting than if the production elements are still there. Like, because the whole environment, the whole atmosphere of the room shifts in somewhat of a negative way. Like we want that, like the atmosphere should shift when God's presence comes in and takes over, but that's in like the spiritual realm, right? Like, but in the physical, like we need that to be consistent so that we're not taking attention away from that spiritual atmosphere shift, right? And so we've been super intentional here about just making sure we build those production systems.
That's your word that always gets used is you're always saying modular. You're all the time. That is your word, meaning that anything that we have can be moved, adjusted, changed. This past Sunday, by the time this goes live, it'll be a couple of Sundays. But, this past Sunday in our 9 a.m. service, there was something different that happened than in 11. And Pastor was wanting to move some stuff around. And just, instantly within 15, 20 seconds, I see both of your guys are on cameras. They're up, they moved, they're in different locations. And I was just thinking like, man, like they did that quick. It was a 10-second, 15-second turnaround and a totally different look. So I think that's, we're talking about this, so, where's it headed? I think that you're spot on of just natural and always easy to move on this.
Fit the moment.
Perfect. Perfect on that. So on this kind of thought of, because I feel like that maybe in the past people have maybe been watching a service and something like this happens. Holy Spirit is really moving, and maybe the production team wasn't intentionally trying to draw focus off of that, but they weren't equipped for it. So now a viewer thinks they're trying to stifle the Holy Spirit. They're trying to cut away with what God is doing. So the second thing I want to ask you about is this topic of production and church online and live stream these things. A lot of times there's a lot of negative that gets thrown with this. There's a lot of division. People leave, the camera pops up, people are leaving church. They're going to go somewhere else. Give me some of your thoughts on this, of this constant conflict, this division. Like, why is this happening? What's the thoughts that people have, you think?
And I want to start by saying this. People are justified in at least having an accountability thing that comes up in their mind. Because the reason why I think people have this negative connotation, like look at production in a negative light sometimes, is because honestly, the secular world has done a really good job of making it a negative thing, right? Like there's something about a stage that corrupts some people. Like, I mean, you see people get on a stage and, they go from being this great person with good character and, and a lot of integrity and like a happy-go-lucky type person that
like a Disney star.
Yeah.
These Disney characters.
Yeah, exactly.
And now
right.
They're like,
yeah.
what are you
like,
doing?
where in the world did you just go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like, so I think that secular world, like, construct that has been built around, stages and production, lights on people's faces, making stars out of people, and then them being kind of corrupted in a sense to the point where now they're not such a great person. And now, like, their shows are not a positive thing. They're more of a negative thing. Like, I think that's where a lot of it comes from. I think some of it also comes from, well, why are we spending, I know this probably costs a lot of money. Why is my tithe money being spent on this? Now, I'll say this: if you are tithing, you probably aren't thinking this way, because if you're tithing, what you're doing is you're giving God what belongs to Him, right? And saying, God, you do with this however you see fit, and God is trusting our leadership to be good stewards of that, right? So, which I believe that Pastor Mike and you, like, our staff, does a great job.
Yeah, how many things are pending right now? There's a lot of things that people look like, like there's a lot more things that we could have to make this a better, online experience. But it costs money, and
it costs money
things that are more important right now.
Yeah, it costs money to do anything. I mean, we're trying to get a new, front to the building. We're trying to do some upgrades to kids stuff. So I totally understand why some people are like, why is my money going to that? Yeah. I think that's where most of that conflict comes from. I think it's from the secular world has really done the church a disservice, which obviously they're gonna, right?
It's the world.
Yeah,
the
right.
The world does what the world does.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of a battle that we have to fight a lot of times in leadership and and in the production world in the church. Like, we just have to make sure that we're being good stewards, right? So, like, when I'll say it this way, like, when we invest in our production systems, we don't just do it like extravagantly, where we're just, let's buy a new camera this week. Let's buy a new audio system this week just because we want to, and we have it.
Yeah.
It's more because, no, what is going to be the best bang for our buck in this moment with where we're headed now. So, like, I say this a lot, and I try to live this way as much as possible. This is a principle that's true in all areas of life, but especially in ministry and especially in production, is that vision should drive method, right? And so, like, when we add to our production systems or make modifications or we're trying to think creatively about how we can go about something, it's always done with vision driving, being in the driver's seat, right?
Not just buying things just to buy them, but
exactly.
a reason.
Yes, exactly. And we're trying to be, like, intentional and strategic with those additions or changes so that we are accomplishing the vision that we're after. Like, right now, and Pastor has kind of alluded to this some from the pulpit, but he's also alluded to us a lot in our staff meetings that this year we are focusing on building people.
Yeah.
We're trying to finish up building buildings so that we can really build people. And we've already started, doing that. We've been strategic already. And so, like, right now, that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to, when we add to our production systems, it's to build people more than it is to, build something else. Right. And so we're just being strategic. And so, but I think, back to your question, like, I think that's where a lot of our conflict comes from, is just a lack of understanding of what it takes and knowing that it costs a lot of money, and then also the world has really corrupted.
That is one thing for sure about this type of stuff is these little things that, like,
man.
Like, they just ain't giving the stuff away, and the things there, it's like you can't, and that's the thing too, is like, people want to, like, man, that's so much, but okay, when you're watching it or listening to it, do you want to be able to hear what's actually being said and these things are going on? And I think a great example of this is even like today, we got an addition to the worship team. Got somebody new coming on and singing.
Yep.
We don't have enough microphones here, so it's like we need a microphone for this person. And I think that's a great way. And there's been plenty of examples of bad stewardship of people that do want to buy all the things. And so I like the way that you're going about with your team as far as let's buy as we need it to fit that niche. And so that's a good thought on that as far as why this division and things on that. Right. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion for sure on it.
And I'd be happy to educate too, because, like, I know that there is a gap in understanding what it takes to do what we do every week. Not only like the manpower and the time that it takes, but also like the gear that it takes. We could have cheap gear and get a cheap product, and then it's hard for the value of what we are presenting to the world is cheap.
Yeah.
Or we can be strategic and invest, in high quality equipment that allows us to present a high quality, high value, presentation of the gospel to the world.
Yeah. I don't want to give somebody a sheen.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's something from Temu.
Here's your Temu church. Like, but I mean, we're not buying like $100,000 cameras.
Sure.
And it's just like, finding that happy ground for it.
Yeah. And you know what's funny too is that like whenever, when we're having to really stick to a budget, like Craig Rochelle says this really well. He talks about how there's a lot of like creativity and breakthrough and innovation happens in lack, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you're having to try to find a way to achieve a certain, like to create a certain product, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't have endless budget to do it, then you become an innovator, right? And so it's also a good growth thing. It helps me as a leader to grow. It helps our team, to grow as well.
We all wish we had endless budgets and we could just get whatever, but it's a good thought. And shout out Pastor Craig, that guy.
Pastor Craig,
he knows his stuff.
He's
man.
a man.
If you're watching, you want to be on, just holler.
Come on.
You can just have it all. So, on this thought of, the negative side, and we'll move away from some of that.
Sure.
But I want for you to share with, you've already said 15 years of seeing this. I want to hear about some of the good, like some of the good experiences, the benefits of production, of having church online, of having these elements and services, what you've seen of the positives from this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can start with some of the more obvious things that it's obvious to me, but maybe not for everybody. But I think that the presentation of the gospel is the most important thing, right? And so like in a way, just kind of using an analogy here, like the most important piece of equipment that we have in this room, in our sanctuary, is arguably whoever is preaching the word, their microphone is the most important thing. My front of house, sorry, that's a production term. Let's
what
back
is
up.
that? When you first started coming here and talking about front of house, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, if I say front of house, what I'm talking about is the sound booth.
Where all the tech people are.
Yes, where all the tech people come. Yeah, exactly. So it's at the back of the room, which I know is kind of confusing.
Front of the house at the back of the room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, it's a theatrical term. We'll move on. But all of my audio guys and ladies that operate our mixer on Sunday, they know that fader, our pastor's fader, or whoever's preaching, that fader is the most important one. And we need to be locked in, during the preaching, because we want to make sure that the gospel is being presented in the best way possible. And so we start with that, like in the room, we want it to sound really good. And so like this is a positive thing. Like when we have an amazing audio system. Honestly, it was kind of a God thing what we have in that room, because what we have in that room, like normal list price for what we have is way out of budget for us. But just through God's favor with man, like we were able to just get this thing and dude in it. We have this amazing audio system. It sounds so good. Well, it's important for it to sound good because we need people in the room to not be distracted by a microphone that's wanting to feedback or ring, or we don't want people to be distracted by, man, pastor sounds so nasally or whatever, or man, worship just does not sound good. It's so like muddy and, and it's too loud and, and stuff like that. Well, when we have good gear, then like, man, we can make it sound really good in that room, and that's no longer
people don't even notice it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You always notice a bad sound about it, but when it's perfect, nobody, no complaint is good.
Exactly. And so, like that's one big positive is, for us to have, good sounding audio. Another positive is that we can present the gospel to the world with video cameras in the room, right? And we're very what's the word I'm looking for? Like that's kind of a major initiative for us right now. That's where we're trying to really grow in our production systems is with our live video system so that we can be pumping out, what happens in the room, to the world online. Yeah. And while we're on that, like I kind of want to challenge, you know what? Let's talk about that after this part. Okay. I don't want to get down that trail.
I got to do to remember to get somewhere else.
Yeah. But you have other positives like, I know we have a lot of lights in that room that move and change colors and, have different shapes and stuff. And, it's just those types of things like allow us to see what's happening on stage, see what's happening in the room, but also be kind of tasteful with how we do it. We can dim the lights out in the congregation and, allow people to feel a little bit more like of an intimate, like it's like a more intimate setting. Right. Light's not just like boom right on them.
We had a scene a few weeks ago. It was like first song of worship. Yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna close my eyes. And dude, it was like the sun hit me right in the face. Yeah. And I wanted to go back to the front of the house and just complain because that's it. Sure. But I was like, I could take a half a step. And that's fixed. Yeah, right. We've got 2 services. There's plenty of seats. And so it's like, hey, if there is something blinding you, just you're free to sit wherever you want. You can move wherever. Right. And
I'll speak to the light thing for a minute. Like, people ask me all the time, they're like, why do we need lights in the room that are moving around and flashing and changing colors? And the bottom line is it's just to kind of help we perceive the world around us through our senses, right? Mm-hmm. That's how God made us. And so it is a lot easier for me in the mornings whenever I go sit down to study scripture and pray, I don't just go sit down on the couch in dead silence, because it's hard for me to get into that, that flow, that focus mode that I need to be in, right? So I'll go turn on some ambient music or, worship music or something. Just, I don't turn the big light on. I turn the lamp light. We don't turn the big lights on in our house.
You guys don't. People. No, I've been. Yeah. You do not believe in the big lights.
We're not big light people. Only when necessary. Okay, only when necessary.
The once a month vacuum.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut them off.
Yeah, right. But it helps your mind get into that attitude, where song 1. I mean, we pop off with just high energy lights kind of moving around the room, flashing a little bit. It's not full bore like it was 10 years ago, right? It's a little more tasteful, but at the same time, it's there to help add some energy to the room, get people to kind of okay, all right, church is starting. Let me get focused in. It's time to worship. I want to really give God my focus and my energy, and I want to have energy, and this is helping me get into that space, right? And then as we progress through the worship set, song 3, we get to song 3. And by that point, less lights moving around. It's still going to be plenty bright, but
And the thing is people don't even realize a lot of times that this happens.
Right.
People realize that there's no flow to how things are happening. Right. They just and now that they're watching or listening, they do turn the lights down by the third song.
Yeah, we're going to just change it up on you. We're just next week.
We're just going to be totally different. The third song, just cranking it.
Just keep you on your toes.
You're transition guys, so you can just get up there and jump and shout.
Yeah, there we go.
But
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It does, and I know that people are probably thinking right now, well, I don't have to have all those things,
Sure.
And you absolutely don't.
No,
but I've been there plenty of times, whether, because with teenagers and stuff, you're trying to get them to focus in, let's worship.
Right.
And you're right. When there's something kind of ambient versus the super bright white lights on, they're staring at their friends.
Yep.
For a lot of times, I think people that they're just trying to start here. And if you're listening, starting with just barely lifting your hands.
Sure.
People are trying to get to these baby steps.
Yep.
And sometimes it's you know what? If I don't feel like the whole room is staring at me, I can do some of this stuff.
Right.
I'm comfortable. I'm going to make a motion with my hands. I'm going to kneel at my seat and I'm going to start this walk somewhere. And they would never do it in a room full of people staring at them or super bright. But it's I'm going to find my corner and I'm just going to have my time. And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I think too, like a lot of people come in on Sunday and dude, they've had a crappy week, and just coming into a place that feels like, okay, we've taken time to make this place feel good, and we've gone through the measures just to make sure that this place, like when you walk in, obviously God's presence is here and you sense that, but also, you sense just, okay, like there's some excellence here. Like we're trying, like that helps people's focus, right? That helps them be able to kind of leave their cares, not necessarily at the door, but kind of like put them in the back of their mind for a little while.
One little thing checked off the first time guest list of, okay.
Right.
As our lead pastor, not to cut you off, but one thing that Pastor Mike always says, you only get one shot for a first impression.
Exactly.
And that's so when people walk in and things are just ready to go, it's like, okay, these people, and not that it's about being perfect because we're a church full of imperfect people, but it's like, no, but we can have excellence.
Absolutely.
And we can be the best that we can be, and we can train our teams and our systems to work the best way that they're supposed to. And things happen, but we can be sharp and ready to go.
Absolutely.
And I believe that God honors that, We don't serve a sloppy God, and we don't, Jesus wasn't just randomly, like, he was intentional and he was sharp about what he was doing. And if we're going to model him from production, all the different areas, be as excellent as we can.
No doubt. Well, and I'm reminded of King Solomon in Scripture when he built the original temple. He pulled out all the stops, man. Like it was an immaculate place, right? So, why I think that's a good model of how we can, in some ways, honor God with what we do is if we have that like mindset that no, we're not going to let like the Walmarts of the world and this is not a dig at Walmart, but like
we got to have Walmart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. But like, we're not going to let like the world beat us out at like honoring who we're serving. Right. Cause this is all an offering to the Lord. Right. And so, King Solomon's a great example. I think, just pulling out all the stops and making it an immaculate place of worship, just a place where, man, we give our best to it. I think it's a good model for us to follow.
Sure.
And so,
and I think that, the honest truth of it, and people that maybe decide they don't want to talk about, but the honesty to it is that, right now we have such a great diversity within our congregation, from young to old.
Yeah.
But really a big influx in the last, you've been here the last 2-3 years of younger families coming in. And, let's talk about King Solomon for just a second, where, and not that it's about these things, I understand.
Yeah.
But, do you want to go to the place that they're hauling out the trash when you're walking in, trying to find, or like the place that's put together?
Sure.
You talk about all the gold and all these things, but it's like the place that's nice and you want to be there.
Right.
And I think it's a lot the same of, people that they strive for that, they want to go where their friends are going, that they want a place that is inviting to them.
Sure.
And so it's not about us having the biggest, the baddest, the brightest, this and that, but it is just that if we can make a space that people want to be at, they want to be at church on a Sunday, they want to worship here.
They want to invite somebody to come with them.
Yeah. And you've got a great, I'm proud, people,
in the best way.
And people are like, at your church. I'm like, no, it's our church. But like, I am proud of people to invite people.
Right.
I'm a pastor. Like, I'm still inviting people. Like, hey, come to church, and I'm proud for people to be in service, to see what God is doing, that they can walk in and not be distracted by all these things.
Absolutely.
But like, I'm just going to worship and just let God feed me.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So I see tons of positives from this.
I think there's a lot of value in combining like excellence with anointing. And I have a really close friend who he operates this way in his ministry. He's a pastor, but he says a lot that like excellence will do a lot for us, but it's the anointing that's going to break the yoke. And what he means by the anointing breaking the yoke, he means like literally like a yoke that would have been used in biblical times that tied an ox to a plow, right?
Yeah.
Like breaking the yoke would mean like there would be some freedom, and so that excellent piece keeps people coming, and makes people want to add, bring people with them and stuff. But then, but also so does the anointing, right? Yeah. It's combining the two. It's feeding your spiritual side, but also it's helping feed the good part of your flesh,
And that's something I think that you've done a great job focusing on is that yes, we want excellence, but it's that God's presence comes first.
Sure.
And that is why we're doing this, is so
Right.
that people, if they're in the house, that they're going to experience God in the best way possible.
Right.
If they can't be here and they're watching online, that they can have, we strive for people to have as close to as being in the house experience as if they're driving on the road, if they're at their house sick.
Yep.
And that's the things that I, because I don't get to hear and see, but I'm always so thankful to hear of people of, hey, I have been out sick. Hey, I've been out, but I watched services pass. I'm so glad I got to hear the word, because I really needed that, know, and from the house right there where they're at. And,
Absolutely.
And I love just hearing those.
That is
things.
awesome. Like, it's always such an encouraging thing to hear that people are being blessed and ministered to outside of being in this room. We want them here. Obviously, we don't want to build an online campus, and I'll kind of speak to that in just a second, but like, we want to provide opportunities for people to be able to also, when they're not here, be able to still worship and still receive and be blessed by, what's happening in the room. But like I said a second ago, like, I want to challenge people's ideas, and
this was our thought.
This was the one. We finally got there. Yeah.
We're here. Yeah. People are like, what was he going to say 4 minutes ago? However long it was.
Yeah. But I want to challenge people's thoughts of like online church. And especially like if you're a production person, like if you're a volunteer at your church, or because hopefully this is reaching you. I mean, we're trying to grow this, right? So, but if you're a production volunteer, or maybe you're a pastor, or maybe you're a worship leader or whatever, and you touch your live video system, I just want to challenge your thought on what church online looks like. Church online, I think, has shifted and is kind of going deeper down this well of your online reach not just being your live stream on Sunday. That instead of prioritizing that live online service on Sunday mornings, looking at church online as like your highest level of impact being Monday through Saturday. Because honestly, the way that the world is now, that right there is where your greatest potential for harvest is, I believe. Like thought. I think that, because like, let's be honest, okay? I love what we do. Our production team is an amazing production team for what we have, and our production systems are good for the size of church that we are and where we're located. But honestly, if you wanted to go watch church online, you could go watch Stephen Furtick, or you can go watch Craig Rochelle, or whatever, like just as easy as you could watch us, right?
Yep. And
so those who call ROLC home are going to tune in. Also, those who are looking for a new church home are going to tune in. But that's kind of like a fringe level of people, I think, for what we could really reach. And so, like, online, I think your focus should be to capture what happens in the room. I'll give a hot take for a second, like, and I might get some hate for this one, but it's okay. This is my conviction, and I'm sticking to it. But I don't think that every church should have a live stream. Honestly, I really don't. And I say that in the sense that
so many people just turned it off.
Yep.
They just go,
yep. Well, and here's what let me back up and say this. I think you should have the ability to capture what's happening in the room on Sunday and record it. But you don't necessarily need to go live. If you have 2 people watching and you just spent $5,000 on a live stream system, okay. Well, 1, you either aren't doing something right, or 2, there's just not a need for it.
Right. Back to what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Needs.
Be strategic, right? But you should be able to capture it, and then...
And so when you say capture, you're talking about somebody just
filming.
A camera in the room?
Yes. Cameras in the room, filming what's happening in the room. But the great thing about Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube is that, hey, we can take that footage that we've recorded, we can make it, we can clean it up, because we make mistakes all the time when we're capturing. But we can clean it up a little bit so there's less distraction in there. And then post it online, those like holy moments, like those highly impactful moments, or like a moment in Pastor's message where he, like he just went off on this just spirit-led thought, and it was really helpful to people and had a great response. But if you weren't in the room, then you kind of missed it. Well, let's get it out there to the world so that they can, hear this too. And then it's not just limited to the people who call your church their church home. And Monday through Saturday, this is a great thing. Like all these social media platforms have algorithms that want to distribute content, you know, and so and distribute it to as many people as will watch because that benefits them. And so by all means, capture what's happening in the room, but like you don't have to have a live stream.
That's a great thought.
Capture what matters in the room and share it, highly impactful moments, share it throughout the week. Be strategic with how you do it so that you can try to reach the most amount of people that you can and present the gospel well. That's the most important thing is that we present the gospel well, right?
That's it. That's why we're doing it. And if you're not doing it for those reasons, then I feel like for so many people that was like, if for no other reason to watch through this thing was just out there because I feel like there are a lot of places that, just like, this is all I know to do because this is what everybody else does.
Right.
It's just, let's go live on Sunday morning and do these things. And just to understand, like, maybe that's not your thing. Like, I know for me, I've helped you. Well, I've been there with you, and you've had me hang lights and do these things. And, like, it's not my thing. I can do it, and I've learned to do it. But, like, it's not – I don't start my week thinking, I hope Dustin asks me to hang lights this week because that would just bless my week. It's like, I don't want to do that stuff. And I think that maybe for, if we're talking about some of these places of, if it is a pastor that's listening to this, if it is somebody that's volunteering at a church that's wanting to get what's happening, because God can move with 5 people in a church the same way as 5,000. And it's like, I want to get out what God is doing so other people can hear it. There's other avenues other than just life. And I think that that's a great advice. That's such good for people to hear. And maybe for a lot of people, like a breath of fresh air of like, okay, this isn't working.
Yeah.
But we have a Facebook account. We have an Instagram account.
Right.
We can work on this Monday or Sunday night sitting around and I can make this better to show somebody Monday, Tuesday. So,
well, it's like, great. Like Paul tells us in scripture that, he wants to be all things to all people. Right. And that's what we can do as a church, like with our production systems, like, meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that need to hear what is said or need to experience what happened in the room on Sunday that couldn't tune in and couldn't be in the building on Sunday morning. And so, but we shouldn't deprive them of that moment.
Right.
You're right. We shouldn't deprive them of that opportunity to experience what God did in the room.
There's nothing worse, I think, that when you've got somebody coming up to you and they're telling you like what they did for the weekend and how cool it was and like, dude, you should have been there. And you're like, I really wish I could have been there.
Yeah. And then to be able to walk away from that, how do I, it's like, this is funny. I just thought of like back in the day when DVR didn't exist or like streaming platforms, right? Like if the commercials were ending, show came back on, everybody dropped what they were doing to get back in the room because they're going to miss it. If there's no way of recording and being able to see it again if you missed it. And so if we're not doing that in our church production systems, well, we're creating that same kind of dynamic where it's like, oh man, I missed it. And then there's like discouragement that comes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
it's good. Those are good thoughts. All these good things and stuff, if you feel like you're reading the curve a little bit, and we talked about what's happened in some of the past stuff of like these crazy, lasers and all this stuff and those things. But where do you think maybe over like the course of the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever, of where you feel that this is heading in this, church production world?
Yeah. It could go anywhere, really, honestly. I think that in the near future, what we're looking at is more of probably some stripped like production elements where it's not quite as involved or quite as loud. Like we're seeing kind of like that, like what I talked about with it being super loud, in multiple ways 10 years ago. Like we're just seeing a little bit of a decline in the volume, if you will, and how loud production systems are. Who knows? It may jump back up and we might see a little bit more of a more tasteful way of doing, loud productions. But I think what we're seeing a lot of is a whole lot of content creation. I think content creation is the driver right now in church production. So what that means is we're investing a lot in gear to capture that content. So video and photo systems that can capture that content. Because what people want right now, I think, in the church world is they just want like good, authentic, like word, and they want connection with people. And so if they can connect with a word, or if they can connect with a holy moment, or if they can connect with, like a testimony that somebody has, then we've accomplished the vision, right? And
so less the highs of worship than that, and more of what's really affecting this thing.
Exactly. And I think that you're still going to see, like, lights aren't going to go away, I don't think. No, they're here to stay. They're just going to continually to progress into more of a tastable, more strategic, fit the moment type of application. Yeah. And what I also see a lot of is I see a lot of like completely changing the mold, right? Kind of a trend right now in church production world is you're seeing a lot less, we call them black boxes, which is kind of what we have in this room, where there's just a lot of black walls, everything's black, and then there's, light fixtures and all that stuff to kind of help hide some of what, like those production rigging and, cables.
If you
and
ever
all
have
that
a
stuff.
chance to get up on a stage on a Monday.
No.
On a Monday.
Please don't go there. yeah.
You'll be mortified at what you see.
Exactly. Yeah. Please don't come in here on Monday and go looking at what's going on backstage. It's kind of messy.
Hey, we had a yellow cable up in ours
Oh
for
my
like
gosh.
months and months.
Oh man,
and we finally got it fixed.
Nuts.
But yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
do you have any? I know this is kind of rogue and AWOL.
Yeah.
What do you do personally to help you stay current or with the curve of stuff? Because you're leading this house in that area, so
sure. Well, and I'm glad you said that, because it's just as like in your personal life, in your spiritual life, if you are leading a team or like leading your family, whatever, like you should always, always, always know you have not arrived. You have got to learn continually, keep growing, some things like read, obviously read books, content, like relevant books, if, in the production world, but also, I mean, like a lot of production lives on YouTube, TikTok, stuff like that. So, I mean, I am constant. I mean, it's a part of my blocked schedule for every day that I spend time. What I'm doing is I'm consuming content, but it's growth time. I'm consuming very specifically curated, intentional content that's going to help me get better. So I'm always following, and here's what I'll do. I'll follow like other production directors or, other churches that, maybe either just kind of at that next level or 2 or 3 levels beyond where we are now, and applying principles. And I think it's important to have that range, right? So you don't just have like the elevation churches that you follow, which is like way, way beyond where we're at right now. But that you have like steps, like people who are literally right next to us, in the next phase of growth. So that you can apply like different levels of principles in your strategy.
That's good.
And so, I mean, like there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, or rarely anything new under the sun. And so most of what I do is very inspired and by somebody else or what somebody else did. I'm not trying to copy what somebody else did, but it's a lot of times
we're all learning from somebody,
right?
Whether you want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
Everything we do is we learned it from somebody else, and we put our own taste on it.
For sure. Well, and two, like I'm also trying to look for inspiration outside of the church world. I know that at first, like first impression of that can be a little bit like cringy, kind of like, we don't need to be looking for inspiration outside. But the reality is there's a lot of creativity in the world.
Sure.
But you have to make sure your filter's good.
Yeah.
One
of those eat the meat, spit out the bone type
yes,
of things.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. It's one of those things where I can get an idea from what happened at this show that's not a Christian artist. I go to a lot of shows that are not worship bands, right? Because there's still there's still plenty of really good bands out there. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
You're still saved.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Your children are still doing okay.
Yeah, right. It all kind of just boils, and that kind of brings up a very important, probably foundational piece of this, is that like spiritually, I'm constantly making sure I'm feeding myself. Like I want to stay in that close, intimate relationship with the Lord where the Holy Spirit regularly speaks to me and helps me discern what decisions I make or what, what's happening around me. And so like, if I'm looking for inspiration on something, or if I see an idea, knowing that spiritually I am good, that I'm solid, and that I am in constant prayer all the time, right? Like every day, I'm just in that attitude of prayer. I'm close to the Lord. The proximity of his presence is close, right? In my everyday life. Then I don't have to worry that I'm being inspired by something and it's leading me astray. Yeah. And so, it's just a lot of following churches, following bands, following, like brands and stuff like that. Like it's just a lot of trying to consume content that's relevant to my world.
That's a good thought. Yeah, definitely good. I think it's encouraging for a lot of people.
Sure.
I think a lot of people just don't know where.
Yeah.
They just don't know where to start.
Listen, I say this all the time. Like, I graduated from YouTube University. Like, I didn't go to school for any of this stuff. Like, this was all self-taught just from making sure that I consumed content that I knew was going to make me better.
And there's so many people. It's just, we got fantastic YouTube mechanics because there's a video for everything. And
yeah, exactly.
Just like for this, like I don't know. I knew how everything worked, and now I sit in your office. I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff is, but I could type in the name of any of these things, and there's a YouTube video on how to set it up, how to do it.
Exactly.
If I had to, edit this podcast, I mean, it wouldn't be great, but I could find a video and
figure out a way.
And it's just it's just learning, and somebody's always learning and teaching and helping, and making people better. And on that note of making people better and helping and doing some of those things,
here we go.
That is slick. Here we go. We told you at the beginning. I was like, I want to get into some of the different changes and things in your life. You got something pretty much brand new.
Yeah.
There was a few people lucky enough to get a little bit of heads up on what was going on.
Yeah.
But it's live now.
It's live.
Tell us about what's going on. The changes.
Yeah. A lot of changes in this season. Biggest one being that here recently, I've had this like.
Well, let's back up. I guess you've done weddings.
Yeah.
You've been on TV shows, like legit big
National
name TV shows.
Yeah.
You've done some stuff.
Sure, I have done some stuff, and listen, that is not a toot my own horn thing. As absolutely God's favor on my life, like.
The opportunities that you've
every opportunity that I've ever had is all because the Lord gave me the opportunity and I was obedient. That's it. If I had any part in it, it was just pure obedience. I've just learned that the hard way. I've learned that obedience is the best way. And so, and it's taken me to cool places. Like I've gotten to do cool things, but right now, the Lord he's kind of had this on my heart for several years, just didn't have like its formation until just recently. But man, I found my place in the kingdom a long time ago in the production world, but I think that that can look different in assignment over time. And like, again, like I said earlier, ministry's in my DNA. And so, but I want to help the local church as a whole. Like every week am here at ROLC, investing in our production team and our, and making that happen. But at the same time, like there is a massive number of churches out there that have no clue what to do. They're in this growth stage where like, okay, we can invest in some production systems. We can do some stuff to kind of help us, get the gospel out there, get what's happening in our church out there to the world and make our room feel a little bit better and sound better and look better. But like we don't have the person that we need to be able to do it because we got to hire a kids pastor, or we got to hire a youth pastor, or we got to, make sure that we have office admins to help take care of kind of the day-to-day stuff.
Right.
And so
it's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just how it goes. Right. And so what the Lord has just kind of led me to is just being that kind of wealth of knowledge, that person that has done it, right? Like just been in the trenches, like developed this
from small
knowledge base. Yeah. From small to big. And so to help the local church as a whole with their production systems, because a lot of them just don't have their own staff in place, and they can't hire somebody full-time or even part-time to come and do it. It's just kind of like, hey, that guy knows how to, that guy works like in IT, at his job
right.
as a job. Let's have him lead our production team, and that is what it is. That's what they have at the moment, and that's the best option for them at the
Thousands
moment.
of churches across the country. That's the person
Absolutely
that's doing it.
And in no way is that a bad thing.
No.
Right? That's where you are. That's the best move for the time, for the season that you're in. But still there's a gap. And so I want to help fill that gap. And so what I've done is the Lord has kind of given me this brand in a sense, called it Presence First Church Production. And Presence Church First Production, said that right? Presence First Church Production, sorry, is there to just help churches that are in that growth stage where they need some production help, they need some advice, and so or they need like gear installs, they need training for their volunteers and stuff like that. And so and the way that I've approached this is, I do this every week. I'm developing volunteers every week. I'm helping build production systems every week. And so I can help other churches do the same. And so it's kind of like consulting / like gear integration, things like that. But then also a whole lot of just training and development. That's the main focus. That's training and development. So.
That's really good. And it'd be somebody like me, of if I was in that position of, hey, I know how to read my word, and
sure.
I know how to share it with people, but
right.
I wouldn't know the first thing about how do I get this out there to people.
Right.
And so I think that's great that you're available and that people can contact and say, hey, we need some help, and that you can do that.
Right.
And I think it's a unique thing. It's a unique
awesome,
strategy to have.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're able to do it.
It's kind of cool. Like, honestly, it took about 6 months to develop what this really looked like. 'Cause there's a lot of people out there that are doing, integration, which is just installing new gear. And, and then there's a lot of people out there that do just coaching and, or consulting. But it just kind of developed into this kind of unique model. And it's working pretty well so far. We're still very new, right?
It's only
very
been
new.
up for what?
2 weeks.
Just a couple weeks here, got it going.
Yep.
But man, it's cool, and I think it's a neat thing. I was actually reading through. You popped up on my For You page on TikTok.
That's good to know.
And I wasn't even following you yet, so
good.
So it was working. I followed you, but I was reading through. Somebody was asking comments, I think, about some gear and stuff, and they were talking, and so I was reading through, just seeing some of that stuff. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
If people want to. If somebody's watching this, they're like, I need help. What's their best way to get hold of you?
You can do two things. You can either go to my website, it's presencefirst.com. Pretty simple. And there's a form there that you can fill out, ask just a couple questions, and then it'll go directly to my inbox. Or you can just go on social, Dustin S. Oakes on Instagram or TikTok or on Facebook, and just send me a DM, and I'd be glad to help you out.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. I'm excited to see that grow, and everything that you've ever been involved in, it always grows and takes off. And so I'm just excited to see God continue to do that for you and for your family and all those things that are involved. And I want to thank,
I want to thank our pastors, because there's not a lot of pastors. Well, let me not say this differently. Our pastors have, in every season and in every endeavor that I've embarked on since I've known them, they've just been nothing but best supporters, just cheerleaders. And this was kind of one of those weird situations where it was okay, now because I'm kind of an entrepreneur at heart. And so whenever I approached pastors about this, I was like, hey, is it okay if I kind of start a business here, helping other churches, while I help us every week, and stuff like that. So it's kind of a weird, not weird, but just unique situation. But our pastors have been so amazing, and they've done nothing but just support this and given me their blessing, and I'm so thankful.
That's great. And that's a whole other avenue, but there's a right way to go about doing those things. And that's a whole nother episode of stuff.
Right.
So should I expect to see churches and pastors rolling through here throughout the week?
I hope so.
I do too, man.
I hope so,
so
man.
Cool to see people.
I would love for people to come see this space, in the best way possible. I'm so proud of what this space can do. Absolutely. And I think it's a good model for churches in our phase of growth, right? Where they can come in here and see, because this is a little bit of just random facts here, but this room, yes, has some pretty high end equipment in it, but it also has some gear from like Amazon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've been able
People
to
have no idea the mix of.
Yeah, right. Like we've been able to do like a lot of budget things and make it so good. Like every light fixture in that room is from Amazon.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
Right.
And we saved a crazy amount of money, but we're still able to do amazing things with what we have. And so, yeah.
It's good. Well, I want to say just thanks again
Yeah,
for
man.
being on.
Thanks for having me.
And seriously, for what you're doing here at the church, I just want to say thank you that you're doing great. You're leading a great team. From just the physical side of it, when I walk in on a Sunday, it looks great. I'm proud of just how this place looks and sounds. And so thank you for sharing your knowledge, your information with us on this. I pray that as people are watching this or listening to it, that, even maybe some people that maybe they're listening and like I'm just going to watch the church podcast because it's what I do, and I don't really care about this topic as much. But I hope that people have gained an understanding of it, of seeing the why behind all these things that are going on, and that it's reaching people, and that God's moving through cameras, through sound, and through all these things. So, it's cool. So I also want to say a big thank you to all of you that are watching, that have been listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you could, I need one big favor before you go. Tell people about this. Share it out there. Let your family know what's going on. We are hearing so many stories of people that are just sharing this with their families. That's awesome. And if you have questions about today's episode, if you got questions about some of this media stuff, some of this production, do not contact me. But you can drag back, or you can listen back to about 5 minutes ago, and you know how to get a hold of Dustin. Ask him all the questions, fill out his form, get involved with there. But again, thank you so much for being a part of this.
You bet, man.
And we will see you guys on the next episode.
See ya.